these habits, it is a sense of, um, it can be really disheartening, especially if you've had attempt after attempt and fallen short with each time. And for some men, it can really break them to the point where it's really eroding their confidence. What makes it even worse is that men don't talk about the things that bother us. We carry it around with us every go, and every disappointment that we have is another thing that we've got to carry around with us. So it can be really, it's a heavy burden to bear. And the thing about good habits is that they're the building blocks that make us the kind of men that we want to be in our business, in our relationships, in our health, in what we eat, in our wealth, and just so that we can hold our heads up high and be proud of who we are. So really understanding and dismantling the main factors behind why we fall short, it can really be the difference between getting into the later years in life and looking back on a life of achievements, or looking back and with a lot of unmet expectations and regrets, which is, I'm sure, something that we all want to avoid as much as we can. So what we'll do is, it's a little bit of housekeeping just to keep everything running smoothly. We'll do a drop-in. I don't think either of you were here at the last one. A drop-in is just to be really intentional in what we're at. We've got so many different meetings that we're running around to, so many different Zoom calls, that we're very rarely actually present doing what we're actually doing. So this is just a 1-minute exercise where we just do a little bit of breathing, and just really to get purposeful and intentional in this moment so we can really get the most out of it. Anything that we talk about in here, I just ask that everyone keeps it in the room with the people here. People won't share unless they feel safe, unless they feel like there's no judgment, and all perspectives are valid and provide value in some way, shape, or form. And it's the things that you hesitate to share that can actually be the biggest load off of your shoulders, and that can be the stuff that, as soon as you speak it into existence, it no longer has power over you. And it's an amazing thing that I've experienced in quite a few men's groups. Good to capture any insights that you have with a pen and paper. And if you've heard any of these things before, we're not going to go into Atomic Habits. I think that's an amazing book, and I would highly recommend reading it. That's for more of the practical applications and tips, but it's a really excellent book. This is going to be more into, this is more of an invitation to invite you to look deeper into yourself, into why you might not have been able to make some of these habits stick over the years. And it's going beyond no time, no energy, not enough discipline, or not being able to say no when you get to the petrol station. It's an invitation to look a bit deeper than that, to really have a look at, what's there. Because ultimately, these habits that we fall short of, it's not a big thing, but they do prevent us from becoming the man that we know that we can be. Because everything that has power over us, something that we can't overcome, something that's constantly nagging us, is a way that we lose power, that we can't be spending on something that will get us what we want in life. So as I said, Atomic Habits, excellent book for habits. If that's something that you're looking for the practical side of things, we're really going to delve into the psychology and some of the deeper thinking behind it. So just the agenda. So we're going to have a look at what kind of man you want to be, not knowing who you want to be, but trying to create habits is kind of like having ingredients and just trying to make something without knowing what you're trying to make. So this is really, it's what Stephen Covey says about begin with the end in mind. It's a bit around really creating that man that you want to be, and then working backwards to create the kind of habits that you would need to become that man. And then we're going to look at the 5 main reasons. These are the 5 main reasons that keep on popping up in every conversation that I have with men, as to what's stopping them from actually being able to create these habits consistently in their life and become that man they want to do. We're going to do a wrap up as well, because I want to make sure that you have something that you can take away from this, that's really kind of just really distilling the nuggets down from what we've spoken about and what that specifically looks like for you, so that you've got a game plan on how you can actually make some changes moving forward. So it actually makes a difference. Like, you spend an hour tonight here with me, and I appreciate that. And I want you to get something out of that as well. So what we'll do is, and then we'll do a drop out at the end. So what we'll do is we'll just do this drop in. Now, it's really just very, very simple. You want to just put your right hand on your heart, left hand on your lower belly, and you just want to try and breathe into your lower belly. Into your lower belly. So breathe into your left hand as deep as you can. And again, you're just trying to settle yourself into this moment so that we're not thinking about what we're going to have for dinner or any of that sort of stuff. I know that Ian's already had his dinner, but just really settling into this moment and what's happening now. You usually just even feel your heart start to slow down. Your whole nervous system just starts to settle, and the thoughts in your mind start to slow down or even disappear, and it just makes you a lot more relaxed. Good. So jump onto the next slide. So as I said, before we can decide on the habits that we want to create, first we need to decide on what kind of man we want to be. And I emphasize we, so it's not us trying to live up some sort of societal expectation of what a man should be. It's really deciding on who we want to be. So for me, good habits are all about integrity. That's one of the first ones for me. To say what you mean and to do what you say. So part of that is because it's what I want to, I never want to be out of integrity. If I can always do what I say I'm going to do, then other people can trust that I am always going to myself. People can always trust that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do with them as well. And then Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, and it's about creating safety with people. Like he puts it as being a danger, but not being dangerous, but not a danger. So it's like you have the capacity for doing great things and terrible things, but because you owned all of your stuff and you know who you are, you only show the good stuff because you've integrated the rest of the other parts of you. So the first one is integrity. The second part for me is comes down to being present. I think the more present that you are, the more you're dealing with what's actually happening in this moment. If you're not being present, you're in your mind, and you might be listening to your inner dialogue. You might be caught up in a story that you're telling yourself about what's happening in front of you. And all of that's well and good, and it's all perfectly natural, but it takes you away from what's actually happening right now. And what that story does is it actually distorts the way that we see the world. So instead of seeing the world for what it is, we're getting information that's been distorted, which again, isn't necessarily the end of the world, but if we're then making decisions based on distorted information, the kind of results that we're going to think, that's going to affect the results that we get as well. And the important thing about being present is that you're not on autopilot 24/7. People say that their life absolutely flies by, but it's because they're constantly in autopilot and they're not actually in the moment. So this can actually make life, your experience of life, a lot longer as well, the more that you can be present. And the last one for me is courage. So those three for me are the real kind of basis of the kind of man that I aspire to be. So courage for me is the courage to do the uncomfortable things, courage to be fiercely and unapologetically me rather than who I'm expecting to be. I think that we all really struggle with that quite a bit. And up until probably 18 months ago, I was a chameleon in any group, because I was trying to figure out who do I need to be in this social setting to make sure that I'm not cast out. So a lot of work went into me to pulling those layers back, which has been such a massive thing for me in the past 18 months, which, I mean, it's uncomfortable and it's not easy, but it is so worthwhile doing it. So
I think that's a fair point, Aaron, because let's face it, the way the world is going, certainly the way the UK is going,
yep.
You cannot say a single thing
Yes.
without upsetting someone.
Yep.
And frankly, I've had enough of it. So if I upset a few people, I don't care.
Yeah. Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, because I heard something tonight that was saying that so the meaning of apocalypse is really the revealing. So there's so many people that are leaving their jobs, like because of everything that's happened with COVID, they've woken up in their lives. So they're leaving their jobs, they're leaving relationships, they're doing all of these things because they've had enough. They can no longer just play the nice guy and just do whatever is expected of them. They're wanting to take their life back, essentially. And so I have a bit of a polarizing view, which comes across a little bit insensitive, which probably isn't great for a coach. But it's my position that it's not, you can't make anyone feel anything. You can say something and someone will react to that however they react to it. Because say, for example, if I was to go up and to say something horrible to someone with a smile on my face in another language, they probably wouldn't take that to heart. But it's only because they actually understand what you're saying that they will take it to heart. So again, I think that everyone's triggers are their own responsibility. Everyone's at different stages where they're in a position where maybe they're ready and able to work through that stuff. But, and obviously as well, I think it's all of our responsibility to be as kind as we can. But as you say, I don't think that should stop you from being fiercely and unapologetically yourself. So thank you for adding that. I think that's a really important point. So those are the three for me: integrity, presence, and courage. I think for me that they kind of cover most of the things. Obviously, it's not a very exhaustive list, but I'd be interested to find out what is this for you. And feel more than welcome to, if there's other things that aren't on this list, feel more than welcome to add any of your choosing. And
I certainly agree with you on integrity, because you know, everyone says, don't they, know, like, and trust. That's the only way you're going to deal with people. And if you haven't got the trust, then you're going to be struggling.
I think if you've you can take a long time to build it up, and you can lose it in seconds. So it's important to try and maintain it. Yeah.
And also, where I stand with integrity is we're all human. We're all going to mess up, and we're all going to do things that might rub people the wrong way. But I think the real thing with integrity is that you can do something. You can live an integral life your entire life, and then maybe do one thing, as you were just saying, and it might ruin your reputation in the eyes of a few. But as long as you restore integrity by, whether it's, if you're in the wrong, by saying you're sorry and then doing whatever you need to do for you to be okay with it. The other person doesn't have to accept or forgive you, but it's just so that you can be okay with it and move on with it in yourself. But integrity, you can live it all of your life, but it is very easy to restore as well. But you can't control how other people, and whether other people will forgive you or not. And sometimes that can be telling of, like we were just saying, if a reputation can be ruined that quickly, was it really that real to begin with? Or was it very surface level that maybe people were just, it was kind of the platitudes?
It'd be interesting to see what Will Smith, where his integrity now and his reputation is, I think.
What's that? What happened with Will Smith?
He punched.
The Oscars last night, he's whacked Chris Rock, was it, I think?
Yeah.
No.
He made some comment about his wife. You see it on the news, all over the news at the moment.
I'm completely unplugged from everything, so I'm sorry.
Chris Rock has made some comment about Will Smith's wife, who's developed an alopecia, I think.
Oh, no.
And Will Smith is in the front row and has got up and slapped him across the face and walked back and started shouting at him. So
he made a joke about when's he going to see her in G.I. Jane 2.
Yeah.
And he took exception.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, a man's wife, especially like being in the limelight like that for a woman, even without any kind of skin conditions or anything, would be pretty tough as it is. So, yeah, is that the right thing to do, or is it not? It's so hard, because traditionally speaking, a lot of like an older generation might think absolutely that was fine, but then you look at the younger generation, they might say violence is never okay. There is no right or wrong. Everyone has a different take, so it is a tough one. I will have to YouTube that that
it's very quick.
Yeah.
So what three kind of stand out for you guys in terms of the kind of man that you would like to become?
I think determination for me is something that unless you've got it, I'm not sure how you achieve things. Really, you've got to have a focus, and maybe determination is another word. But and then love for me, family, kids, grandkids is a huge driver really for me in my life, because they give you so much joy. A few headaches as well, but a lot of joy.
Yeah.
3 is quite difficult, isn't it? But I'd probably go integrity, determination, and courage.
Yep. Integrity, determination, courage. So determination and integrity sound like there's some very similar ones there. It's interesting you say love. I think love is one of those things. I think everyone should love each other. And that might sound like a ridiculously wild thing to say because we don't know so many people, but I think that deep down, we're so much more alike than anyone really knows. And it's kind of just the ego and the fear that creates separation between us. And I think love is one of those things that it can be unconditional, but we make it conditional in a lot of different areas where it doesn't need to be. So I think there's some really good ones. Excellent. And it's if we fall short of creating these good habits in our lives, or not creating skills, or not being as good as what we were hoping to, what we've unconsciously done is we've set the bar to say, for me to be a good man, I need to act with integrity, I need to be determined, and I need to be courageous or loving. So whenever we fall short of these, or our habits aren't in line with this person, in our mind, we make ourselves out to not be good enough, to not be able to live up to that bar. And and again, there's some people that will look at this and they will use it as fuel to keep on pushing forward. It's not that they've been defeated, it's just that they haven't succeeded yet. But there's other people out there who will look at this and think, I'm not good enough, I'm not the man that I want to be. And that they can have that, where they're quite hard on themselves and beating themselves up. But I definitely started out like that. And again, because we don't really talk about these things, this can be a really heavy burden to bear, and it can erode confidence in a lot of areas of life. So great. So we've got an idea of the kind of man we're aspiring to be. So now it's just what kind of habits will we need to, in order to be that man. Now, you might be tempted to think back to habits that you've created in the past, or attempted to create. But I would just, if you can, just keep trying to come from that ideal version of the man that you want to be, and then create the habits. So again, we want to start from the future and work back, rather than come from where we are now or from the past and work our way forward. Now, the reason for that is there's a guy called Joe Dispenza who does some really interesting work on this stuff. And it's, if you keep creating your future based on your past or from where you are now, you're just going to create more of the same situation that you have right now. You won't actually get any progress because you're coming from the past or you're coming from the present. This is why they say to really put yourself as if you're already the best version of yourself, or the better version of yourself, or that where you want to be in 3 years' time, and work your way back, because that will be giving you access to things that you may not even realize that you have access to now. So the question of what kind of habits that you would need to put in place to become that man, what does that look like for you?
Someone who follows through, I think, is important to me. Says what they say they're going to do and then do it.
Yeah.
I always try to be on time. I know that sounds, I think first impressions is the best impressions. And I think that if you turn up on time, turn up when you say you're going to turn up, that's generally helps, I think.
What's that integrity? It's like, it's showing people that, this is the foundation that we have to build on.
I'm probably not good at expressing my feelings. I'm probably not good at reading every day. But I probably, and I don't meditate too much.
Yep.
I'm not painfully honest, that's for sure.
Mm.
So I'm struggling on a third here. But I can see where you're going. I can see what you mean, but I can see 2. I can't see 3 for me. But but I wouldn't know what the third one was. I suppose it's maybe taking action.
Mine are all down the left-hand side.
Yep. That follows through is painful. So, again, like with being painfully honest, that's where you run the risk of potentially rubbing people the wrong way. But you know what? Like some of the best advice I've ever had in my life, and some of the biggest turning points. Like I have a friend who I've known from primary school, who would make any other normal person cry every day, just with the kind of the bold truth that he gives them all the time, or berates them with, depending on how you want to look at it. But he was like a pivotal turning point in me turning my life around, because he just would tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I respect him incredibly for it, because people are afraid to do that, and they will think that they will try and say, I don't want to tell them the truth because I don't want to hurt them. But really, there is a combination of that, because we're empathetic creatures, but also what we're really doing is trying to keep ourselves out of an uncomfortable situation.
I think there's a way of telling people things.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be as harsh as it sounds. I think you can present it sometimes in a way.
Yep.
So
definitely, I think that. So, but the only thing is that like we walk around, and I can't remember what the latest figures are. We get bombarded with marketing messages all the time, and if we think about how many of them we actually remember, that there's probably like a handful, if that. But we have so much stimulation that's just coming at us all the time, that sometimes if we dilute things down, they just go straight over someone's head, like they didn't even realize that it happened. So sometimes it's that really sharp, punchy thing that just gives them a bit of a punch in the gut and makes them wake up and think, wow, okay, that's actually really true. But I take on board, and obviously, like for what I do, like I need to be able to tell people in a way that's not going to have them never want to jump on another call with me again. As I'm sure it's the same for you as well. So there is a way of delivering it, but I think it comes down to compassion. I think the difference between someone who gives really honest, like too honest feedback, and it becomes offensive, is the difference between someone who feels like they're judging you and they're up on their high horse, and someone who is compassionate and maybe showing a bit of vulnerability and showing how they've been there in the same place. They really understand where you're coming from, or their experience of where you're coming from. And they say it to help, not to hurt, or to elevate themselves, if that makes sense. Is there any others not on this list, Steve, that you would add to your third? If not, no pressure. It's just
no. I'm being reliable, really. I suppose is the only other.
Yep.
I suppose that's covered in taking action and following through, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. They're good ones. They're good ones. And it's just looking for, like, obviously these are quite broad. So just looking for kind of the habits within those. So what kind of habits would someone take if they were reliable? And then just even thinking about one of the most underutilized things is looking at friends, celebrities, sports people that we respect and we look up to, and finding out, really distilling down, what is it about this person that I really respect and admire, and then looking to them too, because what you're actually seeing in them are gifts and talents that you have, because we can't appreciate something that isn't in us as well, because we have no frame of reference to understand why that's so important, or why it's so special. So just know, if there's ever someone that you look up to and you admire, or you're even jealous of, that quality is in you as well. And it's just looking to be developed, matured, healed, and that's where you get the full benefit of it. So now we've got the habits as well. So the kind of man that we want to be, as well as the habits. So does anyone come up with any different habits than what they have in the past? Is anything new, any new thinking come up?
I think possibly, and it's still on the same subject I was talking about earlier, I think because of the fear people have about saying the wrong thing,
Yep.
or upsetting someone, you end up not bothering, not saying anything, because you just know it's going to cause a stink.
Yep.
Not in my day-to-day work, but if you're talking socially or otherwise, it's probably sometimes better just to bite your tongue and not say anything rather than what you really feel.
And it's keeping
and I think
the
that
peace.
society's pushed us that way.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
certainly, I think in a work environment as well, that you have to bite your tongue a lot. I think when you hear people speak and you think that's not right, but you have to point it out to them in a way without reacting too bluntly.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like if you get triggered in that, they almost feel the energy of that, and then they get triggered back as well. Brene Brown, who's actually really, really funny. She did a Netflix documentary called Call to Courage. She said something really brilliant in there. And she was saying that we all have the need for belonging, but in an attempt to fill that need, we've all assimilated and become exactly the same. And that was never the point. The point was to maintain our fierce individuality and to still find a way to get along anyway, in spite of our differences, or even maybe because of our differences, that we're all got a different perspective and we're all adding to each other's unique perspective of the world, which takes you from looking at a 2D object to seeing a 3D object when you see it from enough angles around. So I thought that was really good. And again, I think it comes back to, because there's people out there that have hard conversations and they do it in such an artful and a skillful way that creates openness, it creates safety, and it creates a space where people can talk about this stuff rather than just kind of spitting poison at each other almost. And it's a really rare talent to be able to create that safety for people and to be able to just create something where people can just speak their mind. Because if someone doesn't want to, if they're not open to seeing the world a little bit differently, it doesn't matter how amazing your retort is. It doesn't matter how specific and exact your data is. They're never going to listen. And if anything, it just gets to a point where they're just defending their position and defending their ego, than actually them believing in the topic that you're talking about. So I can't remember what the saying is. What is it? Something about fools. You can't argue with fools or something like that. Yeah, something along those lines. But yeah, but with that sort of, there's no growth. So I think it's, and again, you can only control how you enter the conversation. You can't control how they enter the conversation or how they perceive you as well. But the other thing there is, it's good to consider sometimes, how am I acting that is making this person perceive me in this way, especially if there's a pattern going on, because sometimes we can have an unconscious bias that's coming across. We might not be aware of it. We may not even intend for it, but we may have something going on that's making things come across a little bit more harshly than what we hoped. Good. So we've got a couple of different ideas for habits there. So the 5 main reasons that keep popping up when I talk to men about this is, and falling short of who they want to become, is too much, too soon, too unrealistic. They're trying to do everything all at once, and ultimately they have really unrealistic expectations of what they want to achieve and how they're going to do it. They're aiming for someone else's target. We're going to break these down into a little bit more detail in a second. Lack of clarity, or they don't know how. This one is show me your results and I'll show you how you see yourself. This is something that happens a lot in people who have lost a lot of weight and then put it back on, and conflicting agreements in values, beliefs, intentions, actions. This is kind of what we were talking about before, when you've consciously made a decision to do something, but then unconsciously you still do what you know that you shouldn't be doing, when your determination, your discipline is down and weak. So the first one is too much, too soon, too unrealistic. So this is when people have tried to drop 3 stone, but doing it in such a, they might have a wedding or a Europe trip with the boys or something like that, and they try and do everything in a very short period of time. They try cutting out all of the junk food in their diet and just decide overnight that they're going to live much healthier, but the rest of the family continues eating pizza and all that sort of stuff around them. It's not creating an environment that sets them up for success. Trying to get 8 hours of sleep, but still not really being able to say no to the boys wanting to meet you at the pub, or increasing your income by £20,000, but being unable or unwilling to put in the extra work. And these are all like great things to aim for. And again, maybe it's a little bit over ambitious. I'm an idealist, so I always aim for the slightly more idealistic side of things. But the thing that really gets you here is the shame. It's like when you fall short of the goal that you've set yourself or the habit that you want to create, it's the shame. It's the really beating yourself up and the inner critic that is just having an absolute field day that doesn't let you forget how short you fell. In the first example, you might have dropped 1.5 stone in a month, and that by anyone else's standards would be really impressive. But the fact that you've fallen so far short of your goal might not be something that would allow you to enjoy it. You might cut out all of the junk food, all bar one meal a week, and again, you might still be beating yourself up. So it's this shame, and it's not being able to recognize what you've achieved and only focusing on the thing that where you've fallen short that really can be damaging here. And again, this is something that you can take into other areas of your life as well.
Is that your dog?
It's not.
Classic.
But in saying that,
Classic face.
when I put this deck together over the weekend, all I saw was dash hounds after that. It looked exactly like this. It's kind of like the thing where
he does look guilty.
Where you buy a yellow car and then you start seeing yellow
just
cars.
nicked your Sunday lunch, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. By the size of them, I don't think they'd be able to run away with much.
I think a target's only a target if it's achievable, really.
Yeah.
And there's a you need to stretch the target, but you don't want an easy target. But you've just got to try and not to be too far away, but just so you can be competitive towards it. That's the right.
Absolutely. And it's about creating, they call it a competence-confidence loop. So if you aim too low or something that's well within your means, then you are able to hit it too easily. So you don't really get a boost in confidence. You're not really stretching yourself to improve your skills. If you go way hard and bigger than what you're able to achieve, then that, again, the shame can come in where you're falling short and you beat yourself up saying, I'm not good enough. So finding somewhere in the middle that gives you something that will stretch your abilities and it'll give you confidence. And then it's just, as I said, like it creates this confidence loop. Now, the important thing when it comes to targets is to make sure that you are aiming at a target that you yourself have chosen. Again, this goes back to trying to live up to societal norms and expectations where we see that someone else is trying to do something and we will just expect that, okay, that's what a man is supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do. So it might be trying to stick to a diet that you really don't enjoy. So say, for example, Steve, when you mentioned not like finding it hard to go to the petrol station and not get some of the pick up the chocolates.
Yeah.
Now, in that, there might be a scenario where the rest of your diet might be, and this might not be the case, this is just an example, the rest of your diet might be really clean, and your inner child doesn't get an opportunity to come out and have a little bit of something that makes it feel good. And so for me, I used to, my trigger food was peanut M&Ms. So I replaced them with yogurt and muesli and blueberries. And I kid you not, whenever I feel like peanut M&Ms now, I will just have yogurt and muesli and I'm absolutely fine. Like it's like I've actually replaced that in my mind, but you're still giving yourself that outlet
Aaron,
to have a bit
just coming up on my screen now.
Yep.
Is the Men on a Mission thing starting at 7:30?
Yep. Gotcha.
Okay,
That's
so I'm wondering if when you said at the start, if that's the reminders come on now.
Yes, very possibly.
So you might suddenly find that 23 people suddenly turn up for this.
Well,
and you think, I've just done this once.
The curtain is going down at 7:30, so I'm not doing an encore tonight.
No problem.
Thanks for letting me know, though, mate.
No worries.
And so it's about finding the things that give you what you want. So it still enables you to enjoy yourself, but it also gives you the structure that will make sure that you're progressing towards where you want to be in life as well. So that might look like having a diet that isn't strict. It's about having something that's realistic, that's sustainable, that's enjoyable. Same with exercise. When it comes to meditating, like meditating because you actually want to explore what kind of benefits that could create for you, rather than everyone saying I should meditate, I should really meditate, and just feeling the pressure. Anything that you feel obligated to do, you will do with 5% of the effort, energy, and enthusiasm that you will if it's your idea. So really just understanding why you do things and making sure that they're things that you're choosing rather than other people. And having cold showers because it's what a man does. That's what I heard someone say the other day. And I think this really comes down to knowing yourself, knowing your values, knowing what kind of man you want to be. And then from that, you can, again, work backwards to create the kind of habits that you want. If you don't know who you are and what your values are and what kind of man you want to be, you have no choice other than to look at other people to get ideas off of them, which is fine in the beginning, just to get some inspiration. But if you continue doing that, you'll keep comparing yourself to other people. And they say that comparison is the thief of joy, and it absolutely is.
I'm not a cold shower man, that's for sure.
Mate,
It's difficult to get in the sea.
They put you in your, like, so if you're I was someone who is very stuck in their head, so overanalyzing a lot of things. Cold showers will take you out of your head quick smart, and it's weird. Like you get this sensation of peace, because rather than thinking, you're just kind of being. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but it is really interesting. It's supposed to have a whole bunch of other benefits, improving immune system, like all that sort of stuff as well. But just that one thing was enough for me. So it's worth trying, and especially now that we're moving into the warmer months. Number 3 is a lack of clarity, or they don't know how. This is kind of where you see the people at the gym, and they're kind of just walking around, kicking around weights because they're not really sure what they want to do. They might have an idea of, and again, it might be that they're looking at the wrong targets because their friends are saying that I'm going to the gym and all that sort of stuff. So they don't really know what they're doing there, what their end goal is, or beginning with the end in mind. And this is where a lot of procrastination happens, because you don't have any clarity on where you're going. You're going to have a lot of issues when it comes to actually trying to get there. And for me, this is such an obvious one. Like, failing to plan is planning to fail. If you don't know where you want to be, and if you don't have a plan that you can work backwards from there to now, then you're setting yourself up for failure, which is just another lesson as well. So failure is never failure. Failure is only failure if you stop trying. So number 4 is show me your results and I'll show you how you see yourself. So this one, so using that example of the person who lost 3 stone. So if that person has lost 3 stone, maybe it took them more than a month, but they've lost the 3 stone, they look 10 out of 10, but in their mind, they might still see themselves as an overweight person. And if you see yourself as an overweight person, you're going to think like an overweight person, you're going to feel like an overweight person, and you're going to take actions like an overweight person, which means that you also have habits of an overweight person. So it will not be long before you put all of the weight back on and then some. So again, it's that self-image that they have of themselves. There might be some people who make a very comfortable living, but when they grew up, their parents had a very, very much a scarcity mindset when it came to finances, and they spend their money as quickly as they can make it. So they're always still broke because they see themselves as a poor person, or someone who doesn't have money or isn't deserving of money. So that's a big one. And one that you see a lot in small businesses is that they want a successful business, or they want to be successful in life, but they see themselves as a victim. Like I find it interesting, and this isn't any judgment on employment, but I find that employment, because you get told how to do a lot of things, that it can put you in a bit more of a passive mindset. If you have your own business, you can't just afford to sit around and do nothing. So you're always looking for something to do. You always have a much more proactive outlook on life. But the employment side of things, that's what I tend to see, that kind of victim mentality. But that is a shift that we all get to make. So it's like, as soon as you see yourself as a victim, I lived the first 30 years of my life as a victim. But taking back that responsibility and knowing that you are the one who has control over everything in your actual life, that's a hugely empowering thing. So our inner world, how we see ourselves, creates our outer world. So again, that's seeing yourself having already achieved your goals in the future and working your way back. So conflicting agreements, this is an interesting one, because this is one that I think that so many people do that no one really knows about, is where you say that someone who has a small business, they say that they want more clients, but they hold back from actually doing anything to try and get more clients because they don't want the extra work. They might be afraid of failing in front of more people. There's just that internal tug of war, saying you want to be healthier, but refusing to give up junk food. Again, it's that kind of fight between the adult you and the inner child you. Wanting to be a public speaker, but not replying to invitations to speak. That was one that I heard last week. And saying that you want a relationship, but then pushing people away when they get too close. And this is something, like, again, like as you were saying, Steve, like us guys, we do find it hard to express ourselves sometimes. So that can be a bit of a tough one for a lot of guys to work through. But I think it ultimately comes down to, really just reconciling what are these two parts inside of me want, and how can I negotiate between the two to make sure that everyone's having their needs met. So here it's like, for me, it's really about indecision. It's kind of that indecisiveness between two parts inside of you that both want different things. And it is just like going in as a negotiator and finding a way so that everyone can have what they want. We're doing time, just on time. So I just wanted to do a wrap up just to make sure that we've pulled out the nuggets of what we've come up with tonight. As I said, like it's an investment of an hour of your time. So really having something that you can come away with, you can be like, okay, we picked out these kind of values of this is what the ideal version of me is. I think for Ian, it was integrity, it was determination, and it was courage. I think for Steve, it was love, determination. What was your third one, Steve?
Yeah, integrity, determination, and love.
Yep, good. So popular ones.
Yep.
Ethan, I didn't hear what yours was. Well, man, it'd be good to if you'd like to fill this part out as well.
Yeah. I've just been lurking. Just
No, you're right.
listening in. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm not too sure in the moment. It takes me a while to think about these things, but it's definitely a lot of stuff I resonate with. So
yep, good. I'll send across the replay link for this as well. So if you want to just rewatch it and have a bit more of a thing. Yeah. This value stuff, that it's usually been imprinted in us from a very young age. So really peeling back the layers, because it is so deep, can
I'm fortunate to be young enough at the moment. I'm only 20. I'm only 24, but so I'd rather pick the habits before it's too late and actually set the right foundation.
This is the thing, that the longer you've been doing habits, or the longer you've been doing habits, the harder they are to break. So I think you've definitely got the right attitude there, man. Excellent. And again, like coming from that ideal version of yourself that you're aspiring to, what kind of habits would you need to have in your daily life in order to become that man, or to step into that man? Now, was there any of those five, which was the one that resonated with you most, or you can see yourself most in?
Can you flick through them again quickly?
Yeah.
Please.
I'll go to the top one.
I definitely do. Number one, they're too much too soon, too unrealistic. I set these goals for myself and they're too far away. And it's about setting those steps in between to actually get to that goal. I need to get into that sort of habit.
I think for me,
3 or 5.
Yeah.
I think for me, the time it's lack of clarity, really, knowing what you're trying to achieve, really. So it's having a goal in mind, something, a target in mind. That's I work better towards a target than I do just for not.
Yeah, and it's like we are hardwired to conserve energy as much as we can. So if we're not clear on where we want to go, we're absolutely not going to expend energy to try and get there, just spinning our wheels. What about you, Ian?
Yeah, probably 3 and 5.
Yep.
I'm not a great goal setter, really. I just work hard.
Yep.
But without a target, you're constantly beating yourself up.
Yeah.
So it's an area I know I need to, nail down.
Yeah. And also, like, I can really resonate with that, like beating yourself up. Like I used to. So the interesting thing, so I used to be really, really deathly scared of rejection and criticism. Like doing these used to be my worst nightmare. Like I've come a long way since then. And to try and protect myself from being rejected by other people or being criticized, I would be relentless and really, really hard on myself so that no one could ever be harder on me than I was on myself. And also that the finished product would be good because I'm trying to make it perfect so that no one has anything to criticize even. So my inner judge was the drill sergeant who would just be relentlessly like, this needs to improve, this needs to improve. So you'd never acknowledge the good things that you do. It's just always acknowledging where it needs to be better, which is fine. Like, but as everything, like you need to have a balance. So the thing that really transformed that relationship with the drill sergeant was, one, there's a lot of shame there. So for me to let go of that shame, I needed to forgive myself and also kind of talk about all the things that I was ashamed about, because that's why they're so hard on you. Because if you're falling short of something, you actually become a threat to yourself because you no longer trust yourself to be able to meet those needs. So you actually create like a really negative relationship with yourself. I'm not saying necessarily you, I'm just saying in my situation. So it was forgiving myself for all that sort of stuff, speaking out all of this shame so I no longer had to carry it around with me. And then through that, just purely by default, that actually created a bit of love for myself as well. And just really, noticing where you're doing well and giving yourself credit for those things. Like celebrating little wins sounds a bit pointless, but the more you recognize and appreciate all the good things that you do, the more of it you'll see. Good, excellent. Okay, so just the last slide. So if anyone would like to catch up, have a chat, get to know each other better, more than welcome to. I'll send across my link in the wrap up email to have a chat. Next workshop will be in April, will be in 2 weeks, and that's going to be on 10 different areas, similar to this, but this is going to be covering wounded egos, kind of like what you were saying, Ian, about how like when we make other people angry. Sorry, we're not angry at other people. We're angry at the part of ourselves that we recognize in other people. So it's called shadow work. So it's really working on those triggers. So I read something the other day that was, he who is easily triggered is easily manipulated. So getting rid of as many of those triggers as possible, and people they have no effect on you. So you can keep doing whatever you want to do in the world. So one last thing I was going to say about the drill sergeant. that I saw another meme the other day that was saying that self-discipline is the highest form of self-love. So that was one of the things that transformed the way that I saw the drill sergeant. So it went from being a drill sergeant who was always judging and insulting and just picking out where things have gone wrong, to actually seeing that discipline as being you holding yourself to a high degree because you care about yourself, not because you want to work yourself into the ground. And that was a big turning point for me.